The police sirens wailed through the humid Atlanta night, slicing through the thick air like a warning from the heavens. The flashing red and blue lights painted the quiet street in bursts of chaos. A black man in a well-pressed navy blue suit stood beside a sleek black sedan, his hands calmly resting on the hood. His name was Marcus Hill. But the cops didn't care about names, not yet. "Keep your hands where I can see them," Officer Tanner barked, his voice trembling with a strange mix of authority and insecurity. His partner, Officer Ray, held his flashlight inches from Marcus's face, the blinding beam burning against his dark skin. "I'm doing exactly that," Marcus replied, his tone composed yet firm. His calmness only seemed to irritate them more. "You think you're slick, huh?" Ray sneered, circling him like a predator. "Driving this kind of car in this neighborhood at night?" Marcus tilted his head slightly. "Is that a crime?" "Answer the questions we ask," Tanner snapped, slamming the car door for effect. "License and registration." Marcus hesitated for a second. That pause, that single careful pause, was all it took for the tension to skyrocket. "Hands up. Don't move," Ray shouted, pulling his gun halfway from its holster. The scene grew still. Only the pulsing lights and a barking dog somewhere down the street broke the silence. A small crowd of neighbors began to gather from their porches, murmuring among themselves. Marcus slowly exhaled, his voice steady as steel. "Officers, if you'll let me reach into my pocket, I can show you." "Shut it." Tanner cut him off, his finger twitching near his trigger. "You people think you can talk your way out of anything." Marcus looked him dead in the eye. "You people?" Ray smirked. "Yeah. You know what I mean." The insult hung in the air like smoke. Then, before things could go further, a police SUV screeched to a halt nearby. A tall, older officer stepped out, the precinct captain, recognized instantly by his decorated badge. His name was Captain Ross. "What the hell is going on here?" Ross demanded. Tanner straightened up immediately. "Just routine, sir. We stopped this suspect for erratic behavior." Ross's eyes flicked to Marcus, and his entire face changed. He went pale, like he'd seen a ghost. "Put your weapons down," Ross ordered sharply. "Right now." The two officers looked confused but obeyed. Marcus calmly reached into his suit pocket, pulling out an envelope with an official city seal. He handed it to Ross without a word. Ross opened it, scanned the contents, and his eyes widened. His voice dropped to a whisper. "My God." Marcus folded his arms. "Now you know who I am." The next morning, the Atlanta Police Department was tense, humming with whispers that crawled through the halls like restless ghosts. Every officer had heard what happened the night before. Two patrol cops had stopped a black man, disrespected him, and nearly pulled their weapons, only to discover that the man was their new police chief. The story spread fast. Some laughed nervously. Others fell silent. No one wanted to be the next Tanner or Ray. Chief Marcus Hill arrived just after 7 a.m., stepping out of his black sedan with the same calm authority he carried during the incident. His suit was immaculate, his face unreadable. Every head turned as he walked through the glass doors. The air seemed to shift around him. He paused by the front desk. "Morning," he greeted softly. The receptionist, a young officer named Denise, swallowed hard. "Morning, Chief. Where are Officers Tanner and Ray?" Her eyes darted nervously. "Tanner's in interrogation too, waiting for you." "But, Officer Ray, he didn't show up for roll call." Marcus's brow furrowed. "Did anyone contact him?" "Yes, sir. His phone's off. Dispatch says his patrol car's still parked outside his apartment building. Send a team to check it out." "Yes, Chief." Marcus nodded, heading toward the interrogation room. His polished shoes echoed on the tiled floor. Every step seemed to weigh more than the last. When he entered, Tanner was sitting rigidly at the metal table, his face pale and damp with sweat. The man looked nothing like the tough-talking cop from the night before. Marcus took a seat across from him, silent for a moment. The air was thick enough to cut. "Officer Tanner," Marcus began, his voice calm, almost gentle. "How long have you been with this department?" 8 years, sir." 8 years. Marcus leaned back, folding his hands. And in those 8 years, how many black men have you pulled over like me? Tanner swallowed hard. I don't know, sir. Try. Maybe 100? Tanner muttered. Marcus nodded slowly. And how many times did you treat them with the same respect you'd give your captain? Tanner's eyes dropped to the floor. Not enough, sir. Marcus studied him quietly. There was anger inside him, yes, but deeper than that was disappointment. He wanted accountability, not revenge. Then his phone buzzed. He checked it. A text from Denise flashed across the screen. Chief, you need to come see this. We found Ray. Marcus stood. Stay here, Tanner. He walked briskly to the parking lot where a few officers stood gathered around a patrol car. When Marcus approached, the group parted silently. Ray's car door was open. The seat was soaked in something dark blood. His badge lay on the floorboard, smeared with it. And on the steering wheel, scrawled in what looked like the same blood, was a single chilling word. Traitor. Marcus froze. The word pulsed in his mind like a heartbeat. Any sign of him? Marcus asked. One of the investigators shook his head. No, Chief. No body. No struggle outside the car. Just this. Marcus glanced at the nearby security cameras. Get me the footage. Now. He returned to his office, the unease crawling up his spine. Whoever did this didn't just want to hurt Ray, they wanted to send a message. As he watched the grainy camera footage, the image of Ray's car flickered on screen. The timestamp showed 3:17 a.m. A shadow moved near the vehicle. Then, just for a second, the figure looked up at the camera. The face was obscured by a hood. But something about the way the person moved, the stance, was disturbingly familiar. Marcus froze the frame. His eyes widened. Wait, he whispered. The figure was wearing a police-issued jacket. Someone from inside the department had done this. Before Marcus could think further, Denise knocked and stepped into his office, looking pale. Chief, there's someone here to see you. Who? She hesitated. A man says he's from Internal Affairs, but he's not on today's schedule. Marcus frowned. Send him in. A tall, thin man entered, his sharp eyes scanning the room. He had a folder tucked under his arm. Chief Hill, he greeted with a forced smile. I'm Agent Darnell Cole. I've been sent from the state's Oversight Division. I think your department's got a bigger problem than a missing cop. Marcus leaned forward. Go on. Cole placed the folder on the desk and opened it. Inside were photos, dozens of them, of police reports, falsified evidence, and unsolved cases going back years. The rain poured in sheets that afternoon, washing over the city like an unending storm trying to cleanse something far deeper than dirt. Chief Marcus Hill stood by his office window, watching the blurred streets below. Atlanta looked calm, almost peaceful, but Marcus had been a cop long enough to know that calm usually meant trouble was hiding. He turned back to his desk, where the blood-stained badge still lay wrapped in a plastic evidence bag. The word traitor echoed in his mind, loud enough to drown out the thunder outside. Denise knocked softly on the door. Chief, we've reviewed more footage from last night. Tell me you found something. She nodded, stepping in with a tablet. We caught a glimpse of another car leaving the lot around 3:20 a.m. No license plate visible, but it's a black Ford Cruiser, department issued. Marcus exhaled sharply. So, the suspect has police access. Denise's face tightened. Yes, sir. But there's something else. We traced a digital access log. Someone entered the armory at 2:58 a.m. with a Level 4 clearance code. Level 4. Marcus repeated. That's high command authorization. Only captains and above have that access. She nodded again, her voice lowering. Which means it could be one of our own leaders. Marcus's chest felt heavy. He'd been on the job less than 48 hours and already, the ground beneath him was cracking. Keep that quiet, Denise, he said. No one outside this office hears about the access code. Not a word. Yes, Chief. After she left, Marcus leaned back in his chair, rubbing his temples. His mind replayed the events from the previous night. The stop, the insult, the fear in Tanner's eyes when the truth came out. Then Ray's blood. The message. The shadow in the camera. Something connected those moments, but the picture wasn't clear yet. A knock broke his thoughts. This time it was Captain Ross, the same officer who'd shown up at the traffic stop. "Chief, I just wanted to say again, I'm sorry for what happened last night," Ross began carefully. "I didn't know those idiots would go that far." Marcus studied him silently. "And yet they did. Under your watch." Ross sighed, stepping forward. "Look, Hill. This department has had problems long before you came here. Old habits, old alliances. I'm not defending them. I'm warning you. If you plan to clean house, be ready for backlash." Marcus narrowed his eyes. "Backlash? Not everyone's happy about you sitting in that chair," Ross said bluntly. "You're the first black police chief in this city's history. There are people, inside and outside this building, who think you don't belong here." "I've dealt with that before," Marcus replied calmly. Ross gave a tired smile. "Maybe. But this time, you're wearing a target on your back." As Ross turned to leave, Marcus called after him. "Where were you around 3 a.m.? Ross froze. "At home." "Why?" Marcus's eyes didn't blink. "Because someone with captain-level clearance accessed the armory last night. Around the same time Ray went missing." Ross turned slowly. "You think I had something to do with that?" "I didn't say that," Marcus replied evenly. "But you were the only captain on duty this week." Ross's jaw clenched. "You'd better be careful with your accusations, Chief." Marcus leaned forward. "I don't make accusations, Captain. I follow evidence. And right now, it's leading straight into this department's command." The tension between them was thick enough to cut. After a long moment, Ross turned and walked out, slamming the door behind him. Marcus sat there for a while, the sound of the rain growing heavier outside. He didn't know if Ross was dirty, but his reaction told him something wasn't clean. That evening, as the storm quieted, Marcus drove to Ray's apartment himself. The parking lot was sealed off with police tape, but he waved the officers aside and stepped in. The apartment was small, a bachelor's place half lived in, with fast food boxes and beer cans scattered on the counter. But something caught Marcus's eye immediately. A corkboard near the window, filled with newspaper clippings, old reports, and photos. He stepped closer, squinting. Many of the articles were about police misconduct cases, all connected to the Atlanta department. One photo near the center made his stomach drop. It was Captain Ross, standing beside a group of officers at a press briefing years ago. And among them was Ray himself. Pinned beneath it was a note in Ray's handwriting. "Ross isn't who he seems." The night air was thick, the kind that made the city feel heavy and alive. Chief Marcus Hill drove through the quiet Atlanta streets, his mind spinning with fragments of questions that refused to settle. Who inside the department wanted Ray gone? What was Captain Ross really hiding? And how deep did this so-called APC still run? As he approached a red light, Marcus's headlights caught movement in his rearview mirror, the same dark car he'd seen glimpses of earlier. No headlights, just a shadow gliding behind him. He switched lanes. The car followed. Marcus's pulse quickened. He made a sudden right turn, heading down a narrow industrial road. The other vehicle turned too. "All right," he muttered, gripping the wheel. "You want to play? Let's play." He accelerated hard, tires hissing against the wet asphalt, then cut his lights and veered into an abandoned warehouse lot. The dark car sped past, unaware he'd turned off. Marcus killed the engine and stepped out quietly, watching from the shadows as the vehicle slowed up the road. The driver's door opened. A man stepped out, tall, muscular, his movements trained. Marcus's hand instinctively went to his holster. He crouched behind his car, studying the figure through the rain. The man scanned the street, then pulled out a phone. Marcus caught a few words carried by the wind. "He's off route. Lost visual. Proceed with Plan B." Plan B? Marcus tensed. Whoever this was, they weren't some random stalker. This was organized. He crept closer, careful not to make a sound. The man turned back toward his car, and that's when Marcus saw it. The same silver pendant dangling from the man's neck. APC. Marcus didn't wait. He leapt from the shadows, grabbing the man's arm and slamming him against the hood. "Who sent you?" Marcus demanded. The man struggled, reaching for something at his side. Marcus twisted his wrist sharply, sending a gun skittering across the ground.
"Talk,"
Marcus barked. The man's face contorted in pain. "You don't know what you're dealing with, Chief." "Then enlighten me." He spat blood onto the wet pavement, then smiled. That kind of grin that carried no fear. "You think you're cleaning up corruption? You're standing in its house." Marcus pressed him harder against the hood. "Names." The man laughed hoarsely. Too late. Suddenly, a sharp whistle echoed. Marcus turned just as headlights flared from the road, another car speeding toward them. Before Marcus could react, the man elbowed him hard in the ribs, breaking free. Gunfire erupted. Marcus dove behind a trash bin as bullets pinged off the metal. He fired 2 shots in return, one hitting the windshield of the attacking car. It swerved, crashed into a light pole, and burst into smoke. When Marcus looked back, the man was gone, vanished into the night again. He stood, chest heaving, rain mixing with sweat and gunpowder. The second car burned quietly in the distance. Marcus holstered his weapon, scanning for any sign of movement. He found none. Just the echo of that man's words repeating in his mind. "You're standing in its house." The next morning, Marcus was in his office before sunrise. His ribs ached, his mind sharper than ever. On his desk were 2 files, one on Officer Ray's disappearance, the other on the old APC organization, the Atlanta Police Coalition, a secret circle of officers that once controlled promotions, assignments, and internal investigations. They were known for protecting their own, but they'd also been accused of targeting Black officers and community leaders who spoke out against police abuse. Officially, the group had been dismantled a decade ago. Unofficially, Marcus now knew it had never died. Denise entered, holding a USB drive. "Chief, we got something. Surveillance footage from the warehouse area last night." Marcus plugged it in, fast-forwarding through the grainy clips until, there, a figure running from the lot. Same height, same build. He paused and zoomed in. Even through the blur, Marcus could make out the uniform badge glinting in the streetlight. The man from last night was a cop. Marcus's blood ran cold. He rewound the footage and played it again frame by frame. When the man turned slightly, his face became visible for just 1 second. "Captain Ross." Marcus froze. The confirmation hit like a blow to the chest. Denise looked at him. "Chief, that's..." "I know who it is, Marcus." The explosion site was still smoking when Chief Marcus Hill arrived. The air reeked of gasoline and burnt rubber. Flames licked at the twisted metal remains of what was once Captain Ross's patrol SUV. Officers moved frantically around the scene, taping off the area, shouting over radios, trying to make sense of what had just happened. Marcus stepped forward slowly, eyes narrowing at the charred wreckage. His gut told him something was wrong. Something about this didn't feel like an accident. "Anybody found?" he asked sharply. Lieutenant Green shook his head.
"No, sir.
"We've checked twice. The vehicle's completely destroyed, but there's no sign of human remains. Either he wasn't inside or..." Marcus cut in. "Or someone wanted us to think he was." Green hesitated. "You think Ross faked his own death?" Marcus glanced toward the flames again. "If I were a man about to be exposed for running a secret police ring, and I had help from inside?"
"Yeah."
"I'd vanish." Green frowned. "So, where do we start?" Marcus took a deep breath. "We start with what he left behind." Back at headquarters, Marcus and Denise laid out the files recovered from Ross's house. They stretched across the chief's desk like a map of rot, evidence of years of internal cover-ups, falsified reports, and payoffs to silence witnesses. "Look at this," Denise said, pulling one folder closer. "These are community leaders, journalists, even activists, all targeted by APC members. Some of them disappeared after filing complaints." Marcus flipped through the pages, his jaw tightening. This wasn't a small operation. This was an entire underground network, hiding under the badge. He stopped suddenly on one page, a list of current officers still marked as active participants. His eyes froze on a familiar name. Lieutenant Green. Marcus stared at the page in silence. Denise noticed his expression. "Chief? What is it?" He quickly shut the file. "Nothing," he said quietly, though his mind was racing. Green, the same man who'd been first on the scene of the explosion. The same one who conveniently declared Ross missing. Was he helping cover it up? Before Marcus could think further, a knock came at the door. It was Green himself. "Chief," he said, stepping in, "we're in a trace on Ross's last phone activity. The last ping came from an abandoned precinct, the old Zone 4 station out by Fairburn Road." Marcus studied his face carefully. "You're sure?" "Positive. It's off the grid, no patrols, no cameras." Denise looked uneasy. "That building's been closed for years. It's not safe." Marcus stood, holstering his weapon. "If Ross is hiding there, that's where we'll end this." Green nodded. "I'll prep a small team." Marcus's instincts screamed, "Don't trust him." But he didn't show it.
No.
"Just you and me." Green hesitated. "Sir, that's not protocol." "Neither is corruption," Marcus replied evenly. "Let's move." The drive to the abandoned precinct was silent, the hum of the engine the only sound between them. Rain pattered softly on the windshield, the city's glow fading behind them as they drove into darker, forgotten streets. When they arrived, the building loomed like a ghost. Cracked windows, vines crawling up faded brick, the old police emblem still faintly visible above the door. Marcus drew his flashlight. "Stay close." They entered the building. Dust floated in the beam of their lights. The air smelled of mildew and something faintly metallic. Old blood, maybe. The deeper they went, the colder it got. Down a long corridor, a faint noise echoed, a metal clang, followed by a low hum. Green whispered, "Sounds like a generator." Marcus motioned for silence and followed the sound down to the basement. When they reached the heavy steel door, light flickered from beneath it. Voices murmured on the other side. Marcus gestured to Green. "On 3. They counted silently.
1, 2, 3.
Marcus kicked the door open and froze. Inside the basement was a dimly lit room filled with computers, documents, and tactical gear. And standing in the middle, surrounded by 2 armed men, was Captain Ross.
Alive.
Ross looked up, his expression unreadable. "Chief Hill, I was wondering when you'd catch up." Marcus raised his gun. "Drop your weapon, Ross." Ross chuckled. "You don't get it, do you? This department doesn't belong to the city." It never. The rain hadn't stopped. By dawn, Atlanta's skyline looked like a ghost of itself, drowned in fog and sirens. Chief Marcus Hill sat in his office, soaked, bruised, and angry. His clothes were still damp from the night before, but he refused to leave the station. Sleep would have to wait. The coffee on his desk had gone cold hours ago. In front of him were the files from Ross's hideout, the name, APC, circled in red across multiple pages. But it was Green's dying words that wouldn't leave his head. The one who made him chief. That phrase gnawed at Marcus's thoughts. Someone powerful had engineered this. Someone who'd placed him here not to lead, but to fall. Denise walked in quietly, holding a folder. Her face was pale. "Chief, the lab results from the explosion came back." Marcus looked up slowly. "And? No DNA found in the vehicle. The bomb was remote detonated. Whoever triggered it wasn't anywhere near the scene." Marcus sighed. "Which means Ross is still out there." Denise hesitated. "There's something else. Forensics also found a trace of military-grade C4. That's not easy to get, unless you have government clearance." That hit Marcus like a slap. "Government clearance? You mean federal?" "Or state," she said carefully. "And Chief, we traced some of the communications between Ross's men. They were routed through a secure internal network, one that only high-ranking law enforcement officials have access to." Marcus's jaw tightened. "Internal affairs?" Denise looked down. "Possibly. Maybe higher." Marcus rose from his chair. "Get me everything on Ross's past superiors, anyone who signed off on his promotions, his transfers, his disciplinary cases." Yes, sir. He turned to the window, watching the rain streak the glass. A reflection stared back, a tired man fighting an enemy that wore his own uniform. Moments later, the phone on his desk rang. Unknown number. He hesitated, then answered. Hill. A distorted voice came through, calm and deliberate. You've caused quite a mess, Chief. Marcus's heartbeat quickened. Who is this? You were supposed to play your role, make the department look clean for the cameras, keep the people calm. But you started asking questions. Who are you? Marcus repeated. A brief pause. Then, the one who gave you that badge. Marcus's breath caught. You set this up from the beginning. Oh, don't sound so surprised, the voice said smoothly. You were chosen because you're perfect for it, a symbol. The first black police chief in Atlanta. We needed someone the public would trust. Marcus's hand clenched into a fist. Trust for what? To hide the truth, the voice replied. The APC never died, Hill. It evolved. And you're standing in its center. Static filled the line, followed by one last sentence before the call cut off. Meet me tonight. Old Train Yard. Come alone, or more blood will spill. Marcus dropped the phone, staring at it like it might bite him. Denise stepped closer. Chief, what happened? He looked at her, his face hardening. We've been infiltrated from the top. Someone in this city wants me gone, and they're not hiding anymore. Are you going to the meeting? She asked. Yes, he said. But not alone. That night, Marcus parked a few blocks from the old train yard and waited in the shadows. The wind howled through broken freight cars, rattling chains and doors. The smell of rust and oil hung heavy in the air. Through the gloom, a single light flickered near the center of the yard. A figure stood there, tall, dressed in a trench coat. Marcus approached carefully, gun at his side. You called me. Now talk. The man turned. It was Agent Darnell Cole, the internal affairs officer who'd first brought him the corruption file. Agent Cole. Marcus said, his voice low. You're the one behind this? Cole raised his hands slightly. Not behind it, part of it. There's a difference. Marcus aimed the gun. You lied to me. Cole's expression didn't change. I told you the truth. I just didn't tell you all of it. Start talking. Cole took a slow step forward. When the old APC was exposed, the government didn't shut it down. They repurposed it, turned it into a covert task force to manage internal unrest. They needed officers willing to do whatever it took to keep the city under control. Ross was one of them. Marcus's eyes narrowed. And me. Cole met his. By sunrise, Atlanta was already buzzing with one headline. Police chief wanted for murder of federal agent. Marcus Hill's photo was plastered across every screen, bold, unflattering, and damning. The narrative was clean and simple. The chief had gone rogue, shot an internal affairs agent during an unauthorized meeting, and fled the scene. Marcus sat low in the back seat of a battered pickup truck as it rumbled down a rural road outside the city. His clothes were caked in mud, his body aching from the night's chase. The driver, a middle-aged mechanic named Uncle Drew, kept glancing nervously at the rearview mirror. You sure about this, Chief? Drew said quietly. You know the city's turned against you, right? Even my niece said you on the news. They say you killed a federal man in cold blood. Marcus sighed heavily. That's exactly what they want everyone to believe. Drew grunted, shaking his head. Man, I've been telling folks for years. This system don't change. It just wears a different badge. Marcus gave a tired half-smile. Maybe you're right. The truck slowed as they reached a small abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of town. Drew stopped. This where you said your contact waitin'? Marcus nodded.
Yeah.
An old friend. He climbed out and entered the warehouse cautiously. It was dark inside, the air thick with dust and oil. A faint light flickered in one corner. A woman stepped out of the shadows, mid-30s, short dreadlocks, eyes sharp and focused. Good to see you still breathing, Marcus, she said. Naomi. He exhaled in relief. I wasn't sure you'd come. She shrugged. You're lucky I owed you. When you helped me get my brother out of that mess 2 years ago, I told myself I'd return the favor. Guess this is it. Marcus nodded. I need help proving my innocence and exposing whoever's behind this. Naomi pulled out a flash drive. Already on it. After the news broke, I hacked into the precinct's communication logs. You won't believe what I found. She connected her laptop to a small projector. Images flashed on the wall, encrypted emails, transaction logs, and coded reports. Look here, she said, pointing. 2 days before the explosion that killed Green, someone from the mayor's office accessed the APC case files. Then, right after that, Captain Ross got emergency funding approval for special operations. It's all signed by one person. Marcus's brow furrowed. Who? Naomi zoomed in. The signature appeared clear on the screen. Mayor Curtis Langston. Marcus took a step back, his pulse racing. Langston?
He appointed me.
He called me a symbol of change. Naomi nodded grimly.
Exactly.
You were his cover. Marcus clenched his fists. Then he's the one who made me chief, just like Green said. Before they could continue, Drew burst through the warehouse door, breathing hard.
Chief.
You got company. Black SUVs headed this way. Naomi slammed her laptop shut. They must have tracked her phone signal. Marcus cursed under his breath. How far out? Less than a mile, Drew said. And fast. Naomi grabbed her equipment. We've got one shot to get out of here. There's an old storm drain behind the building that leads to the creek. We can follow it north. Marcus nodded.
Go.
I'll cover you. Don't be stupid, Chief, Naomi snapped. They'll kill you before you even see who's shooting. Marcus gave her a hard look. They already tried. SUVs screeched to a halt outside. Men in tactical gear poured out, weapons drawn. Move, Naomi yelled. She, Drew, and Marcus sprinted toward the back of the warehouse as bullets shattered windows and tore through walls. Marcus fired back, taking cover behind a rusted generator. Naomi pried open the storm drain hatch and crawled in first, Drew right behind her. Marcus, she shouted. He ducked a bullet, then dashed for the hatch. A grenade clinked across the floor behind him. He dove headfirst into the drain as the explosion rocked the ground. The blast sealed the hatch behind them. They crawled through darkness, coughing and gasping, until the tunnel finally opened into a narrow creek surrounded by dense woods. For a long moment, none of them spoke. Only the sound of rushing water filled the air. Then Naomi turned to Marcus. You still want to clear your name? Marcus looked up, eyes cold and determined.
No.
I want to bring down everyone who put me in this position, starting with the mayor. Naomi handed him a USB stick. Then night fell fast over Atlanta. Thunder rolled across the city, like an omen. Every TV station, every live stream, every local news feed was counting down to one event, Mayor Curtis Langston's town hall on police reform and accountability. The same mayor who had just condemned Chief Marcus Hill as a dangerous traitor to law enforcement. Downtown, the civic hall gleamed with lights and cameras. Police surrounded the perimeter, scanning every shadow, every car. Inside, the mayor stood behind the podium, rehearsing his lines in front of a mirror. His assistant, a nervous young man in a suit, scrolled through a tablet. Sir, the assistant said carefully, the networks are ready. CNN, Fox, everyone's streaming live. Langston straightened his tie, smirking. Good. Let the city see I'm taking charge. When this is over, no one will even remember Hill's name. Outside the city, in a dimly lit garage, Marcus Hill sat hunched over a map of the civic hall. Naomi and Drew stood beside him. Naomi adjusted her laptop. Security's tight, drones, body scanners, and checkpoints at every entrance. No way you walk in through the front. Marcus nodded. Then I'll go through the service tunnels. You said those connect under the stage. Yeah, but it's a maze down there. One wrong turn, and you'll end up under the power grid instead. Marcus smirked. I've navigated worse. Drew frowned. And what about when you get there? You think the mayor's just gone let you waltz in and hijack his broadcast? Marcus opened his bag and pulled out a flash drive, the same one Naomi gave him. I don't need his permission. Once I plug this into the live feed console, every major network will see the truth. Naomi crossed her arms. You realize if this fails, you're done. There won't be another chance. Marcus's voice was calm, steady. If it fails, I won't be around to care. Silence filled the garage. Then Drew sighed. Well, hell. If you're going out, might as well go out swinging. At exactly 8 p.m., the town hall began. The mayor stood before a packed audience of journalists and citizens. Behind him, the banner read, "Justice and trust in our community." The irony made Marcus grit his teeth as he crawled through the narrow tunnels beneath the hall. The sound of Langston's voice echoed faintly through the vents. Tonight, Langston declared, we face a painful truth. Our department was infiltrated by corruption, led by a man we all trusted, a man who betrayed this city. Marcus reached the hatch beneath the stage, pausing to listen. He could hear applause and murmurs. His stomach twisted. The same people who once cheered him now saw him as a monster. Naomi's voice crackled softly through the earpiece. You're under the main platform. There's a small access panel near the front. Crawl 3 meters ahead, and you'll see it. Marcus moved quietly, lifting the panel just enough to peek through. The mayor was directly above him, smiling confidently into the cameras. And that's why I've ordered a full investigation, Langston continued. We will not allow men like Marcus Hill to tarnish the badge we all swore to honor. Marcus's jaw tightened. He plugged the flash drive into his mini transmitter and slid it through the vent gap toward the media console nearby. Naomi took control remotely from her laptop. Signals connecting, she whispered. 5 seconds, and we're live on every network. But before the upload could complete, a faint click echoed in Marcus's earpiece, then static. Naomi, he whispered. Do you copy? No answer. He froze. Something was wrong. The next second, a voice boomed through the ventilation shaft. Ladies and gentlemen, Langston said with a grin, I have just received breaking news. Chief Marcus Hill has been spotted near downtown, armed and dangerous. The audience gasped. Marcus's blood ran cold. They'd tracked him again. Then he saw movement, a red laser sweeping across the vent beside him. He rolled away an instant before a bullet ripped through the metal grate. Move, Chief. Naomi's voice returned suddenly, panicked. They've locked your signal. They're inside the system. Marcus kicked open the vent and burst onto the stage in full view of A single gunshot echoed through the hallway. Marcus gasped, staggering back, but it wasn't his blood on the floor. Ross's eyes went wide as he looked down at the bullet wound in his chest. Behind him stood Denise, Marcus's loyal sergeant, holding her service weapon, hands trembling. Ross fell to his knees, choking. You traitor. Denise's voice shook.
No.
Just tired of pretending justice don't matter. Marcus caught her as she dropped the gun, tears in her eyes. Outside, sirens wailed. This time for him, not against him. Naomi's voice came through one last time, soft and steady. Marcus, the people are marching downtown. They're chanting your name. But Marcus didn't smile. He looked out through the shattered doors of the Civic Hall, where chaos and light met the night sky. This wasn't victory. It was just the beginning of another war, one fought not with guns, but with truth. And somewhere, deep in the storm of cheers and sirens, the faint sound of a radio cracked to life with one final message. Phase 2 initiated. All units, cleanse the operation. Marcus looked up sharply. The system wasn't finished yet. The night Atlanta erupted was unlike anything the city had seen in decades. Crowds filled the streets, chanting, waving signs, shouting Marcus Hill's name. The truth had finally gone public. Every news station replayed the footage of Mayor Langston and Captain Ross's crimes on a loop. Protesters demanded justice. Officers who once turned their backs on Marcus were now questioning every command that came from the top. But amid the chaos, a darker movement began. In a quiet command room deep beneath City Hall, a group of uniformed men gathered around a glowing digital map of the city. Their radios buzzed with encrypted messages. The lead officer, a pale, stone-faced man with gray hair and no badge, adjusted his headset. Phase 2 is live, he said. We neutralize all witnesses and clean every trace of the operation. Langston's disposable now. And the fugitive chief, eliminate on sight. A distorted voice replied through the speaker. Understood. Operation Cleansing begins. Back at the Civic Hall, Marcus sat in an ambulance with Denise, while medics cleaned the gash on his arm. His mind raced as he watched the flashing lights outside, red, blue, and angry. Naomi appeared, laptop in hand, her face tight with concern. Marcus, something's wrong. He turned sharply. What now? The files we leaked, they're already being scrubbed from the networks. Government firewalls are eating them up. They're trying to erase everything. Denise groaned softly. After all that, we risked everything for nothing? Marcus shook his head. Not nothing. The people saw it. That's what matters. Naomi's fingers flew across her keyboard. Yeah, but if the evidence disappears, the mayor and his men can still twist it. We need a physical copy, something they can't delete. Marcus glanced toward the wrecked Civic Hall, the flashing lights painting the street in chaos. Where's the central server located? Naomi hesitated. City Hall. Sub-basement. That's where all encrypted data gets stored before it's mirrored to the network. Marcus nodded. Then that's where we go. Denise's eyes widened. You serious? City Hall's locked down tighter than a vault right now. Every cop in the city's on alert. Exactly, Marcus said, standing. They'll be watching the streets, not the underground tunnels. Naomi stared at him. You really think you can get in there alone? Marcus looked at both women.
No.
I'm not going alone this time. By midnight, the trio moved through the old sewer tunnels under downtown Atlanta, the same ones Naomi had mapped out earlier. The air was damp, heavy with decay. Flashlights flickered against walls marked with decades of graffiti. Denise led the way, weapon drawn. This don't feel right, she muttered. Too quiet. Marcus followed close behind. Quiet means they don't know we're coming. Naomi whispered. Or they're waiting. They reached a steel hatch labeled Government Access, restricted. Naomi knelt and connected a small hacking device to the keypad. Sparks flickered. The lock clicked open. They entered a dim corridor lined with cables and humming servers. The room pulsed with electronic light, a nerve center for the city's data. This is it, Naomi said, rushing to a terminal. Give me a few minutes. Marcus scanned the area, gun raised. Make it fast. Naomi typed furiously. I'm pulling the data from the security backups, every transaction, message, and order tied to the mayor's account. Once this is out, there's no going back. Denise stepped beside Marcus. You ever think maybe they planned this from the start? You clear your name, they burn the evidence, and the people go back to sleep. Marcus gave a grim smile. Then we wake them up for good. Suddenly, Naomi froze. Wait. Her laptop screen glitched. Lines of code vanished, replaced by a red warning. Remote access detected. Someone's in the system, she hissed. The overhead lights flickered, then went out completely. A voice echoed through the dark room, calm, familiar, and venomous. Chief Hill, you just don't know when to quit. Marcus stiffened. Langston. The emergency lights flicked on, revealing the mayor standing at the far end of the corridor, flanked by armed men in tactical suits. His expensive suit was torn, his face marked with a cut, but his smile remained cold and confident. You think you can destroy years of work with a flash drive? Langston said. You think exposing me changes anything? You don't understand, Marcus. I am the system. Marcus raised his weapon. The system's dying, Langston. Tonight proved it. Langston chuckled darkly. Dying?
Oh, no.
Tonight only made it stronger. People don't want truth, Chief. They want control.
Fear.
Someone to blame. And now that person. The night sky burned red over downtown Atlanta. City Hall was a pillar of smoke. Sirens wailed from every direction, and the choppers circled like vultures. Marcus Hill stood in the beam of the helicopter's light, hands raised but eyes steady. Denise had her weapon drawn beside him, and Naomi clutched her laptop tight, the last physical proof of everything they'd uncovered. Chief Marcus Hill, The voice boomed again through the loudspeaker. You are surrounded. Drop your weapons and surrender immediately. Denise muttered, They ain't talking us alive, Chief. Marcus's mind raced. They'd won a battle, but the war had just begun. Langston was gone, maybe dead, but the voice over the helicopter wasn't his. This was bigger. Higher. He looked up into the blinding light. You really think I'm the villain? A pause. Then the voice replied coldly, The evidence says you are. Turn yourself in. Naomi stepped forward. Evidence? We have the evidence. Everything your people tried to bury. The voice didn't answer. Instead, several black SUVs screeched to a stop nearby. Men in tactical gear poured out, their uniforms unmarked, their faces hidden behind visors. They moved with machine precision, not cops, not feds. Mercenaries. Marcus gritted his teeth. Denise. Naomi, run. Denise shook her head. Hell no. Marcus turned to her.
His voice was firm.
That's an order. Naomi whispered, terrified. Marcus, what about you? He glanced at the laptop in her hands. You're the last line.
Get that data out.
No matter what happens here, the truth has to live. Naomi's eyes filled with tears. She knew what he meant. Before she could protest, Marcus spun, firing a warning shot at the approaching men. Bullets erupted in return. He ducked behind a wrecked patrol car, shouting, Go!
Now!
Denise grabbed Naomi's arm, dragging her toward an alley. We'll find you, Chief, she yelled. Marcus didn't answer. He was too busy fighting off the advancing soldiers, moving with the precision of the cop he used to be, but this time, every shot, every dodge, was survival, not law. Naomi and Denise ran through the alleys, the laptop glowing faintly in Naomi's hands. They could hear the distant thunder of gunfire behind them. Where we headed? Denise panted. The news station, Naomi said. If I can get a Channel 8's transmitter, I can broadcast the files citywide before they shut us down. Denise nodded grimly. Then that's where we go. But as they turned a corner, two black-clad men blocked their path. Denise fired first, taking one down, but the other lunged and tackled her to the ground. Naomi screamed as her laptop flew from her hands. The man grabbed it, but Naomi, desperate, swung a broken pipe and cracked it against his head. He fell limp. Denise pulled herself up. You okay? Naomi nodded, trembling. Let's move. Back near City Hall, Marcus's ammo was nearly gone. Smoke and debris filled the air, flames reflecting in his eyes. The soldiers moved in a tight formation, their leader barking orders. Bring him in alive. Marcus crouched behind a burning car, blood trickling down his forehead. Alive, he muttered. That's your mistake. He spotted a nearby fuel truck overturned from the earlier blast. With one last deep breath, Marcus aimed and fired at the leaking gas line. The explosion ripped through the street, a fireball of chaos and light. The mercenaries were thrown back. The helicopter above jerked violently, spinning out of control. Marcus used the chaos to slip into the shadows. He knew the city's underground like his own heartbeat. He disappeared down a service hatch just before the street collapsed. Meanwhile, Naomi and Denise reached the broadcast tower. The place was dark, deserted except for a lone janitor startled by their sudden entrance. Naomi rushed to the control room, slamming the laptop onto the desk. Please work, she whispered, connecting cables with shaking hands. Denise stood guard by the door, listening to sirens closing in. Naomi pressed a final key. We're live. Across Atlanta, television screens flickered. News anchors paused mid-report as hacked footage began to roll. Langston's confession, Ross's corruption, the secret operations. The people saw everything. Downtown, crowds watching from store windows began to cheer. Others fell silent in shock. Marcus's name flooded social media. #MarcusHillTruth. In the shadows beneath the burning ruins of City Hall, Marcus watched from a cracked phone screen someone had dropped in the chaos. The broadcast was working. The truth was out. He smiled faintly through the blood and soot. For the first time in years, he felt something close to peace. But then, footsteps echoed in the tunnel. Marcus turned slowly. Out of the darkness stepped a man in a black trench coat, tall, silver-haired, calm. Not a soldier. Not a cop. "I have to say, Chief," the man said smoothly, "you made